now come to order. Welcome to the September 5th meeting of the City of Raleigh Design Review Commission. My name is Will Gaskins, and I'm the chair of the commission. The commission is a public body appointed by the City Council that exercises both advisory and quasi-judicial functions. The commission's responsibilities relate to zoning and other land use matters, as well as the visual quality and aesthetic characteristics of the city. Today's agenda includes requests for design alternates from the city's Unified Development Ordinance. When hearing requests for design alternates, the commission sits as a quasi-judicial body and conducts an evidentiary hearing on the request. That means it is like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this commission must make its decisions. The commission's decisions are constrained by the standards in the city's ordinance and the facts presented at the hearing. The commission hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standards set forth in state law and the city's ordinance. The commission must base its decisions upon competent material and substantial evidence presented at the hearing. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and standards, not personal preference or opinion. This meeting is open to the public and everyone is welcome to watch. However, the participation in the evidentiary hearings is limited. Parties have rights to fully participate. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Witnesses may testify as to facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as those facts relate to the legal standards. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts, not opinions. For certain topics, the commission needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values and projections about impacts on safety. Okay, it is my understanding that DA4 2024 will be seeking a continuance to, is the applicant here?
Good afternoon, Chair. Worth Mills on behalf of the Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church, asking for a continuance to the October DRC meeting as conversations with transportation are still ongoing.
Okay, and the date of that October meeting is?
October 3rd.
Okay, and that agenda is okay. So continuance to October 3rd meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to DA 7 2024. And I'll remind applicants before we begin the hearing to please keep your presentations brief and relevant to the facts of the case. And then before we get started, we'll also designate who our regular and alternate voting members are today. So it looks like we need to designate 2 alternate members as voting members, correct? So per how we typically do this, I think Saravia and Kat, you are the longest serving commission members that are also alternates. Is that correct? I think so. All right. So are you comfortable with voting on this case? Great. Okay. Casey, if you'll present DA 7 2024, and I'll swear you in.
Do you swear me in?
Yes, I will. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
So as you mentioned, the hearing for this case was started at that August 1st meeting and continued to this evening. I'll briefly recap the site contacts and the updated design alternate requests, and then allow the applicant to give their presentation. I do have all of the slides that talk about the specific UDO regulations for each design alternate and the findings. If you want me to, I can go over those again, or we can just let the applicant give their presentation, and they're there if we need to pull them up while you guys are reviewing the case. So the property is located at the northwest corner of Social Street and Benson Drive at 1021 Social Street. The property is zoned commercial mixed use, 20 stories, conditional use. The applicant is proposing to construct an 18-story mixed-use building comprising a mix of residential and commercial uses, including a health club and structured parking. So the applicant originally requested 6 design alternates, and these are on the screen here is what you saw at last month's meeting. Since that time, they have made some updates to their design alternate requests. So they have withdrawn 1 request, and that's the request related to the minimum driveway spacing. And then they have updated their request for transparency, both on the south building facade and the east building facade. And those changes are result in slightly increased square footages of transparency provided. So that's a really quick recap of what we talked about, or what I presented last time. Again, I have additional slides if you want me to go through the specific UDO sections and the findings. But if we want to let the applicant speak, and they're here if you want to go back to them.
Sounds great. If the applicant would please come forward. And Catherine, if they spoke last hearing, are they still under oath? Do I just need to reconfirm that or re-swear them in?
Yeah, so the hearing was continued to this meeting, so I don't know who all was.
Sure.
Just ask them to confirm.
Got it.
And it looks like the packet that we got still has the 6 requests on the front page. It's the driveway spacing on Social that's gone away. Is that right?
I was going to also recommend that you have the applicant state for the record what's changing with their request, especially because you don't have that in the packet.
Okay. Worth, did you catch that?
There is the present button.
Okay.
To go to like full screen mode.
Okay.
So just to confirm, if you'll, when you get to it, confirm the portion that is being withdrawn and the portion that's being changed.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Worth Mills, Longleaf Law Partners. On behalf of the applicant, joined by Neil King and Stephen Beatty with DeWitt, Rob Rule, architect with RJTR Architecture, and Mike Fraze, landscape architect with Studio Outside. Would it be beneficial at this time to swear our expert witness?
And if my recollection is correct, you both previously were sworn in. If you could just confirm that you are still under oath for today.
Confirmed.
Thank you. Neil? Confirmed. Thank you.
So to summarize the changes of our design alternate requests, we have withdrawn the driveway spacing request, which related to the spacing between the private drive on Social Street and the exit-only driveway from the parking garage to Social Street. So we have removed the parking garage exit and replaced that with a pedestrian entrance and exit, so no longer requiring that design alternate request. We have made very slight changes to our transparency calculations along both Social Street and Benson Drive. For Social Street, we are asking for a 25% request in order to construct a mixed-use building with 25% ground floor transparency along Social Street. We are also asking for relief to the transparency requirements between 3 feet and 8 feet. That requirement being that half of your required transparency must be between 3 and 8 feet. And so the request there is a 27% design alternate to allow for 23% of the required transparency between 3 and 8 feet along the Social Street building facade. For Benson Drive, we are requesting a 31% request to permit 19% ground floor transparency along Benson Drive. And then for the 3 feet to 8 feet request, 26% design alternate request to permit 24% of that transparency between 3 feet and 8 feet along Benson Drive. Oh. Some formatting here. So first I want to reorient everybody to the project. Again, 20-story mixed-use building, and this view here, looking at that tower from the exchange, which is the overall project that this building at 1021 Social Street is a part of. So this is looking from that central park space towards 1021 Social. You have the 20-story mixed-use building on the left-hand side. To the right of that is the parking deck. And then to the right of that is the existing 1000 Social Street office building that was recently constructed, just to make sure that everybody is oriented to the project. So I also want to show the original site plan that we presented at the August 1st Design Review Commission hearing. This just shows the locations of different uses and different site features on the ground floor. So if you all remember, there is an internal private drive that moves vehicles from Benson Drive around the perimeter of the site to Social Street. You'll also note this parking garage exit that was originally part of our request. And you'll also note the landscaping that was presented along both Social Street and Benson Drive. So at that August 1st DRC meeting, our requests related to driveway spacing along Social Street, building step back, ground floor transparency along both Social and Benson, and parking deck screening for the parking garage. At that hearing, the main takeaways that DRC left us is the exit-only parking garage creates pedestrian safety hazards for those walking along the sidewalk of Social Street and the interaction between pedestrians and cars exiting the parking garage, and a lack of detail in our landscaping plans along both Social Street and Benson Drive. Since, call it the front door of this building is oriented towards the Central Park and not along the two rights of way, we really wanted to make both of those facades and those pedestrian experiences safe, visually attractive for pedestrians, and inviting, to make it look like this was the entrance to a really special project. And relatedly to the landscaping, there was concern about the shrubs that are required along Social Street growing into the sidewalk and impeding pedestrian mobility along Social Street. There was also a question at that meeting about the existing condition of approval that we offered for a variance to this project back in July. I have put on here the graphic that was presented to the Board of Adjustment along with the text of that condition of approval, which reads, "The project will include evergreen shrubs between the parking deck and sidewalk along the property's frontage to Social Street, as shown on the Social Street elevation plan included in the applicant's PowerPoint presentation at the July 8th, 2024 hearing. At the time of planting, the evergreen shrubs must be at least 8 feet tall." After the August DRC hearing, I had a conversation with Justin Remetta, the city's zoning administrator, to determine what changes we can make to our landscaping plan without running afoul of this already approved condition of approval for our variance. And the feedback from Mr. Remetta is that this condition requires a consistent row of shrubs that must be evergreen and must be at least 8 feet tall at the time of planting. That condition does not prescribe a certain number of shrubs, and it does not prescribe a certain species of shrubs. So as long as we are providing that consistent row of shrubs, evergreen, 8 feet tall, then we're going to be consistent with the Board of Adjustments condition of approval. And as we'll show you in a second, I think we've been able to do a good job of working within that framework. So just a high-level overview of the changes to the project. So as I already mentioned, we removed the exit-only driveway from the parking garage to Social Street, and we replaced it with a pedestrian access from the parking garage to Social Street and withdrew that driveway spacing design alternate request. We enhanced the landscape and pedestrian experience along Social Street. We increased the plant variety within the row of 8-foot evergreen shrubs. We selected and vetted plants with a maximum 4-foot mature width to prevent encroachment into the Social Street sidewalk. And we included seating areas along the sidewalk to create a better rhythm and pedestrian experience for people walking from Benson along Social into the heart of this project, and wanted to really create sort of the first pedestrian experience that guests will have before they enter the center of the exchange. We enhanced the landscaping and pedestrian experience along Benson Drive. We increased the size of the dog park and programmed amenities throughout that space. We have screened the back of house building elements, like the transformer boxes, with architectural screening. We have updated our landscaping plans with increased plant variety and called out specific plant varieties in that landscaping plan. And similar to Social Street, we've provided additional seating areas near the intersection of Benson and Social, as well as seating areas along the dog park. And as also mentioned, we were able to slightly increase the ground floor transparency along Social Street and the Benson Drive facades, which taken together, we think really addresses the crux of the conversation at that August Design Review Commission meeting. Now I'll have Mike Fraze come up, talk about the original landscape plan, and show the changes that we've made to both Social Street and Benson Drive.
Scroll forward with the keys or with the mouse?
Scroll forward with this.
All right, perfect. Great. Thanks, Worth. So I wanted to bring the group up to speed with some of the changes that we've made. You know, our last meeting, we had a lot of good, really good conversation about some of the concerns with this landscape plan, and I think that some of the commentary and some of the discussion really led to a better solution that I'm going to share with you, and hopefully you'll feel the same in that it does address some of those comments. This is what we shared with you previously, if you recall, along the Social Street, and I'll focus on Social Street, and then we'll move to Benson next. We were showing that row of 8-foot screen, evergreen screen, that's consistent. At the time, we had provided a list of plants that could be a solution for that, but I think that list was a little too vague, and it also led to some concerns about the planting itself. And there were comments also about just making that a more activated space that led into the development. So from that, we took those comments to heart and developed, let's make sure I go the right direction here and don't jump 20 slides in, to Social Street here. And try to see how I zoom out on this. Let's just leave it here and go from there. So on Social Street, this is why they don't let me do IT stuff. I still have the old drafting desk at the office there. Perfect. Thank you so much. So this is our refinements to the Social Street screening. We've still maintained the 8-foot minimum height evergreen screen at time of planting. What we have done is we selected 2 plants to solve that with. The first is emerald green arborvitae, and the second plant is a Taylor juniper. Both of those have very compact widths. They grow tall, so they definitely would meet those height characteristics, but still stay within that landscape space that we're working within. One of the benefits of the Taylor is it has the more compact form of the two, And with its location, we're able to actually incorporate seating along the street. There's actually 6 spots along there where we've got a seat that kind of goes into that landscape bed. We've got seasonal color around that, and then ground cover planting that runs along it. And so there's a rhythm now as opposed to one plant that runs along the bed or the base of the building where you go from the arborvitae to the Taylor juniper. There's some contrast between the textures of those and the scale of those a little bit so that it adds a little bit more depth. And then the seating itself, we feel kind of helps as well address some of the concerns that had come up in that our last meeting. Kind of a quick section and just a little more detail on those plants. So this would be a section through the sidewalk where the seating is. This is where we would have the Taylor juniper behind. There's a photo of a Taylor juniper at about, roughly 8 foot height, might be a tick over depending on where you want to really measure that. And it's going to be about 2 feet, 18 inches at time of install for the width. For the mature growth on that plant, and you can see it in that photo there, they'll get 15 feet and maybe 20 feet in perfect conditions and really stay within 2 to 3 feet of width. So we felt like those would work really well in that planting area behind the bench so that they wouldn't intrude upon that, but they would still create that screen, that evergreen screen that we wanted to have and have a nice texture to them. The other plant that we are using for that evergreen screen is the arborvitae. It's a little bit wider. I would say at the time of installation, it's probably 2 to 3 feet in width for an 8 foot tall arborvitae, so a little bit wider, a different texture. So we purposely picked that so that you would have a little bit of contrast between the two plants, both in color and texture, just to add a little bit more depth in a very tight space. And then from a mature standpoint, once again, it's probably going to get about 10 to 15 feet in height. So the Taylor will actually get a little bit taller than that and stay within a 3 to 4 foot width. So that's why we don't have bench or any seating in front of that. We have a 6 foot bed, so we have a little bit of space, buffer space in there, but these typically kind of stay within that window. And so we felt like these were 2 good plants that would work and respond to some of the concerns that we had in the last meeting while adding some variety along the street. Oh, gonna need to zoom back out again. So, perfect. Thanks, Worth. And this is here, we're going to zoom in. This is an image of what that street would look like and how that pattern would set up along there. You can see the arborvitae are kind of the wider evergreens just behind the bikes there. Where the seating is would be the tail, and this would be like an at install image. These would actually continue to grow and get, probably 1.5, 2 times taller, perhaps, than what you see here. But this would be a rhythm that repeats multiple times down Social Street that works also with some of the other enhancements that are happening already along the sidewalk with the enhanced paving, and the tree plantings that are there. So we feel like this has improved that condition to be a lot more responsive than an evergreen screen. Rob, you were going to chime in on some of this?
Yeah, so obviously you can see the building architecture is the same as it was before. And we, in this package, have submitted a revised diagram that illustrates the transparency that we submitted last time, which is the reason why we are doing this enhanced landscaping. What you'll notice here is where there used to be a vehicular opening sort of in the middle there where I'm putting my arrow is now gone. We still have some transparency there, but we've increased the transparency. We found a little bit more opening underneath the parking ramp that we actually opened up right here. And within those openings, we're actually putting in a code-required pedestrian access to the street that is required now that it's a dead end. But it did increase the overall transparency of the deck a little bit. I mean, it doesn't get us the full way, but it does increase it some. So we just wanted to point that out, that we've redone all those calculations. So now we'll move to, yeah, I need help with this too. Move to Benson, and let's talk about the landscaping there.
Oh, man.
You're probably good like that, and then I can just go to that larger one.
Okay. Let's see. Percent view. Okay.
All right, don't wander too far away. So once again, this was the plan that we shared with you last time. I wanted to speak now a little bit more about our response to Benson Street, but also kind of frame your memory on what we had presented last time. Along Benson, we do have a series of utilities on that kind of intersection edge that we were screening. We have a dog park that kind of sits in the middle of the block there with an access way out. And then it was essentially street trees and foundation plantings that were either creating screens from the utilities or just softening views into the dog park area. Similar comments to Social Street, not as much about the encroachment into the sidewalk with the planting, but more activation along Benson than just views into a dog park. So what we looked at, and also concerns about screening some of those utilities. So what we looked at doing, I think this would be the last one we just have to zoom out on.
Yeah.
So, perfect.
Let's see if that's killing me.
There we go. Perfect. So what we did with Benson is we looked at along the sidewalk incorporating some seating areas. We actually have 3. They're not as consistently spaced along that street frontage as Social Street because we do have some slopes that we are taking up along the way. And so our concern was that if we put some of those in there, they really wouldn't be useful just because of the cross slope. But we do have some areas to the top, and we did flip this, by the way, to the 2 intersections where it's a little bit flatter. So we were able to incorporate some seating there, a little wider, so there'd be 2 benches in those areas. We've also looked at incorporating an architectural screen around those utilities with landscaping in front of it. Before it was just landscaping, so we've kind of added to that, and it's a screen that Rob can talk about a little bit, but it really works with the building architecture so that ideally it looks seamless and not something that was just added on afterwards. The dog park is an area that we also focused on, and before it was kind of center of block, but one of the moves that we made was to actually take the dog park and extend it along the foundation of the building all the way up to that access drive along Benson. And you can kind of see this in this enlargement here, where that makes it a much bigger amenity. Some of the bench seating actually comes right up to the edge of that fence, so it's not just a dog park, fencing, landscape, and then sidewalk. You can actually be on the sidewalk, come up to that edge. So hopefully there's more of an interface. And also the corner there, when you cross across that access drive to the right along Benson, you're going to be received by some activation that's happening there rather than just planting. So that was another nod to try to make that a more enhanced, more expressive space than just a landscape space that's out there. Well, Worth, I lied to you. We got one more in here.
Okay. I got to be good for something.
And so this is a view here of that dog park across Benson. There's the thought of looking at some interesting shade structures, but you can also see at the ground plane where the benches are located along the dog park, the planting that's there. We're once again using the same evergreen screens in certain areas like the Taylor junipers and arborvitae, but we're also looking at hydrangea and inkberry and then like sedges as ground cover. So from the sidewalk to the building, that is all going to be landscape. The only area that would be turf would be from the sidewalk to the curb. So that was another comment that came up in the last meeting of just more clarification on that. And so that's kind of the plant palette that we're looking at for that area. But that shows that extension of that dog park all the way to the corner of the building, where once before it was really half of that facade in the previous meeting. And then this is just kind of a quick snapshot. I've kind of addressed them, but up at the top, the smaller slide there are the plants that we're using. The arborvitaes on the top to the left, the junipers in the middle. We've looked at some ornamentals along the dog park that would be like red buds. We'd get some pop of color. And then some of the shrubs that we've looked at along the dog park would be hydrangea or inkberry holly. And then some of our ground covers would probably be more like sedges, something that keeps low but has some movement to it. And then seasonal color would be near some of those benches. So this is kind of a more defined plant palette than what we had before. to give you a better sense of where we're trying to head with this. And hopefully you'll see that we've really taken your comments to heart and tried to really apply those. And honestly, I think your comments really elevated. That's why this meeting is in place, right? Is for us to all kind of look at this with fresh eyes. And I think it really has elevated Benson and Social Street in this second round for you guys to look at.
Yeah, and so this is the UDO required calculation for the transparency along Benson. Once again, transparency slightly increased, not a significant factor, but we did redo the calculation for that. And then the last couple things I want to show you on Benson, this is sort of the corner looking Benson off to the right and Social off to the left. So you can see the signage, the layered landscaping, the seasonal color, the benches, the people, the activity that's happening there. What you probably don't see right off the bat, doesn't scream out at you, is the fact that there are transformers there, which you noted last time. We've incorporated a screen wall that actually feels like it's the base of the building now. So it doesn't feel like transformers sitting out in the base in front of a parking deck. It actually feels like there's something going on as the building steps out to the street with architecturally shaped panels that are the same materiality as the parking deck. And they would be in removable panels so the transformers can be serviced. That's the only way to get that done. But it sort of blends in. That was the idea. And we do that also. It's blended in also with the landscaping and layered with the signage that you kind of see there. And then kind of stepping back and looking at how that's all put together on Benson, we'll close with this image that I believe does a great job of really activating that entire frontage there at the base of the building, from the dog park on the right with the sort of our layered shade structures, which are going to be fun and playful, and they're going to draw your eye, and all the activity underneath all that there, and then all the landscaping and signage, the layering of the building, and just the building architecture itself. And that's our close.
And thank you to Rob and Mike, and just to tie all of that back into the ground floor transparency requests. So first, is the request consistent with the intent of the transparency standards, and the intent there being to lend visual interest at the ground level for vehicular and pedestrian traffic? And I think, as you can see from the holistic exhibit here, there is enhanced landscaping, there's the dog park amenity, there's the seating that really ties everything together and allows somebody to have a good pedestrian experience without having to even get into the overall central park of the Exchange if they preferred not to. There's plenty to look at, plenty to experience on both Social and Benson. So we think that this does a good job of lending that visual interest, both from an architectural perspective with the seating areas, with the screening of the transformer boxes, as well as the landscaping plan that Mr. Frey's put together with the variety of plantings along both Social and Benson Street to create sort of one of the welcomings into the Exchange overall. So for that second standard, does the street-facing building facade utilize those architectural and landscaping elements to create visual interest? We contend that this does. Happy to answer any questions about our updates. We didn't want to focus on some of the other requests that didn't seem like there was much discussion, but happy to discuss those as well, and appreciate the time this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll get to questions here, but I don't see anyone here from the public who would like to speak, so we're going to move on to questions from the commission. And Worth, if you would just confirm for me, I think your presentation is a little bit different from what we have in the packet. So if you could just confirm that what is in the presentation that you've got here is what we are ruling on today.
Yes, yeah, and I would offer the presentation and the updated design alternate request to be entered in as part of the record this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, a quick question for you. So he put the motion, the exact wording of the Board of Adjustments on there, and we'll talk through some of his conversation with Justin Rometta in terms of interpretation here. Does that concur with your interpretation of that language in terms of our ability to
So the Justin, as the zoning administrator, is the person that has the final authority to interpret that condition. So I can't really say anything different than what he might say. But I can also say that the BOA condition has to be complied with, so,
Okay.
in addition to whatever else might happen.
Understood. Much of our deliberation last time centered on trying to interpret what was able to be edited within that context, so I think we're clear. Questions from the commission?
I've got a couple. So just for clarification, the architectural screening that's screening the transformers, there's a comment that it's the same material as the parking deck screening. Can you describe to me again what that parking deck screening is?
Sure, yeah, it's metal panels that are perforated and ribbed. So there's texture and there's multicolors. So the same kind of dancing panels that you see on the parking deck, we would actually take them and put them all close together and let them shift with color at a smaller scale within basically pipes that go down into sleeves in the ground that can be removed.
Do you remember the perforation percentage?
I don't have it off the top of my head. Did we have to report that or need to report that? 50%. Is that what we said? It's less than 50, I think, perforation. Yeah.
Our open space was 50.
Yeah, the open space. I would imagine it's probably a 30% range. I would imagine is what it is, something like that.
Okay.
Might want to be a little bit tighter at that screen at the transformers though, and we can make it tighter than that. And because the scale wants to get smaller, as you saw in the rendering, and maybe I just go back to that whole the detailing of that it's a smaller scale. So I think the perforation want to be a smaller scale, wants to be tighter openings. In fact, if we want to have virtually no openings, that's fine too.
And is this rendering accurate that there are no real tall shrubs in front of that screening?
That is correct.
So yeah.
Yeah.
We can talk about that. I think I'd prefer something that's less transparent around those transformers. And then the other question that I've got, the shade structures, I think the comment was there was a thought of shade structures. Since the presentation is different than what we've got in our packet, can you confirm that those shade structures are actually what's proposed to be put into the project?
Shade structures are proposed to be in the project for sure. I mean, there's a desire, and it's going to be shaded. It needs to be shaded, and we like the idea of it being a sort of an up and down, playful use of the shade structures to do that, as we've conveyed artistically here. But this is an artistic representation; it's not a final design. But that is the intent for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Can you navigate back to one of the Social Street elevations? Sure.
Is this one? Yeah. What you're thinking?
Do you have one that has the pedestrian entrance?
Yes, I have it on the calculation diagram here. So the pedestrian entrance is right there, where the mouse is. And it would just be a sidewalk width just to get out.
Okay. And this pedestrian entrance more or less blends into the kind of the pattern of the building versus what the previous driveway had more of a
That's right.
architectural feature.
That's
into
correct. It would just blend in. It could really kind of go away. It's really there for code only. That's the only reason it's there.
Is there an elevation of that with the landscape?
I
I can't remember.
I don't think we included a new. Yeah, I don't think we have that elevation. Oh, yeah. In the supplemental drawings.
Well, because that's Ben's.
Yeah. There you go. Keep it. There it is. Back one, right there.
There.
So yeah, you can see right there. You can almost. This sort of indicates, you can't even tell it's there, but it would.
Yeah, where
the
is it
idea-
on that?
The idea is that it would be, I can't zoom in, I don't know how to zoom in, but it's right there. You can kind of see it.
Can you give us some context about what's happening on the other side of Social Street? Either now or what's planned?
At One Ren Center, it's surface parking on the other side of the street. Yeah,
And that's going to stay that way.
as far as I know. The Class A office building that DeWitt could speak to, they're in the building.
And I'll need to swear you in. If you'll,
Stephen
you swear in last time, right?
I was.
Okay,
I
so you
was.
just confirm that your name and then that you were
Yep,
sworn in
Stephen
last time.
Beatty, DeWitt, Carolina is 3301 Benson Drive. Yeah, One Renaissance is our existing office building that is at the corner of Benson and Social. Currently, there's surface parking there. Currently, the plan is that it'll exist as an office building with surface parking.
So you're familiar with that area?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, yes.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around who's going to sit in those benches. Like, who do you imagine sitting in those benches? It's a lot of, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Oddly
6
enough,
benches.
all of our office tenants,
Yeah,
they literally just walk around the site, just walking around the sidewalks. Our intent is that we'll have really a trail system throughout the park, and part of that trail system will take people along Social Street and throughout the Exchange. So to this day, we have office tenants that are walking on dirt. So
yeah.
so
Cool.
they're out quite a bit.
All right, great, thank you.
Any additional questions from the commission? I think for consistency, if someone from transportation staff would be willing to speak. Seeing none? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
On those shade structures, the intent is for multiple sales. I don't think we want it to end up to be just one single shade structure
Absolutely.
out there.
Absolutely. That's the desire from the client, and architecturally, that would be the best solution. It goes with the language of the building, breaking it up.
So my question here for transportation staff is just would like you to confirm that there's no safety concerns with the change in design alternate request here from having a driveway exit to pedestrian entrance.
Certainly.
And if you
Mensa
could-
Webb from Transportation. I have no concerns about the pedestrian access being proposed here on Social.
Okay, and just, we swore you in last time.
Yes, I
Correct.
was.
Okay, just confirming you're still under oath.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions for transportation staff? Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no further questions from the commission, we'll now close the hearing for deliberation. Casey, can you navigate us back to the requests and/or findings?
I'll just start by saying I really appreciate the effort they put into this second version for us. I feel like they took our comments and did a really good job of responding as best they could with the constraints that they have. So, great example. This is a great example of what we want to see, and appreciate them coming back with that.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Excited to see the level of response to multiple elements of this, and the materials put together are very compelling, which I appreciate. It's improvement in many ways that get to intents here behind these.
I think the only comment I had was that just seems like a lot of benches in a place where I can't imagine people would want to hang out. There's no real activation. There's no commercial shops or anything. It's just like parking. So why would you have 6 benches? But
Yeah, I had the same
whatever.
thought, but big block,
Yeah.
it's good for the rhythm.
Yep.
It's an invitation, even if you don't sit there. I think it sets the right atmosphere.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the benches, and I like that the dog park now wraps around. And the
Yeah.
addition of the color and the shade elements really helps to tie it together in a way that feels more like a transparency replacement, to make it interesting. You said you had a comment on screening for the Transformers?
Just that I would like to see the transparency of that screening to be as minimal as possible.
How transparent was it? I missed that.
30 to 50, not a clear answer. But even, 30, 40%, you can see through those pretty readily. during the
Is the
day.
transparency like required for air movement or something?
We would have to ask them that. There's, potentially.
Or just the same material as something that needed airflow, so it's,
Yeah.
what do y'all think? Any thoughts?
Just running through the requests here for the group. I don't recall from our previous conversation that there was much conversation, discussion, concern from our group related to number 1, number 2, or even number 3 here. Most of the conversation was related to ground story transparency. Do you feel as a group that the adjustments made here, landscaping treatments, architectural treatments are sufficient here to weigh the transparency, which is a significant ask in terms of the amount of transparency here due to it being kind of a facing inwards development towards the rest of the site, which is kind of a meta-level issue that comes out of this commission often of in navigating our transparency requirements. But
Right, so the requirement is 50% transparency in the 0 to 12-foot range, right? And let's just talk about social for a minute. So the intent is that, if you can't meet that, the intent for transparency is to lend visual interest to the street facing and building facade and minimize blank wall areas. And if you can't do that, then let me get to it. So the street-facing building facades utilize other architectural, artistic, or landscape treatments to create visual interest to offset that transparency reduction. So our shrubs that run
Thank you,
along the
Casey.
length of the street adequate for offsetting, and the benches adequate for offsetting 50% transparency requirement? I mean, that's the question of
yeah,
the group,
yeah.
right?
I mean, I think that whether you like the, regardless of the, kind of subjective opinions about the design, it's a pretty clear argument that they've done that, gone above and beyond that requirement in terms of landscape and other features, in my mind.
Personally, I'm more convinced of it on Benson because
Yeah.
of the dog park. I mean, that dog park with the shade structures is about half the length of the street.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, the screening around the transformers is definitely better than having shrubs screen those transformers.
For sure.
So I think I'm more of the opinion that the Benson Street side is doing what the code is being asked of.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the social
You're not
street
feeling
side.
it on the social street.
I'm not sold, but
Yeah.
could be convinced.
Yeah. Yeah.
love to hear from Dave, some other folks.
I'm curious how much more we need. You're thinking something similar to how they screened the transformers and doing that level of articulation along it?
Not necessarily. I mean, I just go back to the thought about, we've seen these developments before where they're very inward facing. Yeah. And they kind of turn their back on the city streets. And so are we doing enough to make sure that the activation that the transparency is intended to create is, if what they're proposing is adequate to that?
Short of putting retail on the front of it, I question
great
how
idea.
much you can activate it, and what would you, well, I'd question if we've got this central space that is where all the energy is, how hard am I going to push to compete with that, to get something on that street? Or do we recognize it is, that's a nice place to circulate as this neighborhood somehow develops, and that's an adequate treatment to visually be engaging as you move into the true social center of the space. And like we said, we talked about the benches, they're there. I don't know if people are going to spend an afternoon on them, but they're there to say this is a place for people to be as they move into the 100% space.
I
Yeah.
definitely feel like, from a relative level, having seen it before to now, much happier in terms of it feeling much more inviting. There's more utility to it with the the benches and other elements along it, and not necessarily specific to this case, but I do wonder, given that we see these more multi-phase developments from time to time where this comes up, if there's not a further element to this where it's better able to take into the context the overall of being able to look at the other side of the building essentially and say, okay, this is what we're creating as a result of shifting this around.
Yeah.
And having that be more of the equation than it is now.
Yeah. I think that we can kind of flag projects like this for discussion in our retreat or, kind of future efforts, because I think the inward-facing development trend is probably not going to go away and is important. But if we look at our findings, they only ask for surface aesthetic treatments. And so, it's hard for us to look at this and say, it's hard for me to look at this and say they didn't do that in a pretty substantial way.
I don't know what else we would ask for without a major programmatic shift in design to this.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any thoughts on this?
I mean, I think that we have to, in some way, stay open-minded whenever it comes to these types of things about doing something that's these inward-facing developments, as we've said before. And I completely agree that I think they've done about everything that they can do to give us an alternative to transparency on the other facades. And from there, it's a little bit of a kind of trust and hope that this is going to be a successful development that does face inward. But yeah, I mean, I would agree that I can't really imagine anything else that I would ask for them to do on those two facades that wouldn't just create a busier
Yeah.
look.
Okay. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I might just, it seems like we're accepting inward-facing developments, and the UDO might be written the way it is to avoid inward-facing developments. So, I mean, I don't know if that's the right logic to support approving. I'm not saying I would approve or disapprove, but it just seems like a backwards logic to me. And I've mentioned this before, I think the main purpose of the transparency requirement is not to have more windows. It's to actually create depth on the facade, to be able to see into the depth of the building. And I think the hardest thing on Social Street is there's just not enough street section between the road and the building to establish layers and depth and that. I mean, we use the phrase visual interest, but I think visual interest is not intended to be more stuff. I think it's about depth, right? And not having a flat facade. And so I think the Benson Street one is much more successful from that perspective. Because there's literally more depth to work with, and so
Yeah.
Yeah. To their credit, I don't think they've overpacked it the way sometimes we get feedback and then it comes back and it's like we've stuffed it with everything we could fit. So
I think this inward-facing development conversation is a good one for the retreat because I actually don't see this as an inward-facing development. I see this as creating a neighborhood center and stepping out in the broader context. The volume, the intensity of use, and the number of people that it would take to truly activate all edges of all of these blocks is huge. And I can't conceptualize that happening in Raleigh in the next 50 years in that particular location. But I could see whatever the Sheraton or the Hilton turning over and something goes in there and it becomes a neighborhood street, but it's still going to be dependent on that one central space for a neighborhood identity. So I'm generally of the opinion you make good streets that are comfortable for moving through, but we don't necessarily need to push them all the way to fully activate it.
right. No, I think they're going to be massive community benefit to designs that are multi-phase, holistic, be able to create these Central Park elements that
Right.
otherwise wouldn't exist. But our findings are, or what we're looking at. So there's a little bit of a gap there for us.
Right, and I'd push us to be considering master plans, considering all the future land use plans as broader planning documents for what it's intended to be. Because as much as we want everywhere to be special, we also don't want to pull energy away.
If everywhere
from
special,
super
nowhere
special
special,
places.
right?
Huh?
If everywhere special, nowhere special, right?
Exactly.
Okay, I want to, again, kind of commend the applicant here for being as responsive to the conversation and hearing last time, coming with very detailed visuals. I think, just for the record here, would love to be able to receive those in the packet. I know that things get designed iteratively up to the deadline, but that's definitely helpful when we're able to refer to documents and not have to rely on accepting the presentation on the fly. Anything further from the commission, or would entertain a motion here?
I just want to address Chris's concerns about transparency on the screening elements. Do you want to open it up and have a conversation about that with them, about why and if and what?
I don't know if I do, other than just, I have said my piece. I'd love to hear from others on the commission about just thinking about that transparency and what the openness is that you want to have to make it look good. So, I mean, to Matthew's point about depth, having a little transparency might actually add some depth to that facade versus having an opaque panel that just matches what's going on. On the other hand, you probably don't want a 50% open screen.
Yeah,
I mean, if you
Raleigh-
think about
yeah.
if you've been down Atlantic by like Raleigh Ironworks.
That's what I was just gonna say.
There's a screen around some of that mechanical equipment.
And you can
out
see
front.
right through it.
Yeah, it's 50% transparent, give or take.
Yeah.
And you can see right through it during the day.
Yeah, it feels.
And so I think you'd want something tighter than that, but probably not fully opaque.
Lean on the architects for this, but
I'm happy to open it back up if we have a question, or if,
And to that end, I think that's why I wouldn't want to put a condition on it. Because I think it just needs more study.
okay.
Jason, Matthew, Kyle, any thoughts? Brooke? Oh.
Did I get to speak?
Wait, sorry, no, my fault.
So I think as far as the transparency then on the panels there, I think that some of the intent that they talked about was that the colors, the fact that there's a gradation in the colors is going to handle and make the depth. So I think as long, the intent is there to make it to look good. I agree that maybe a condition might be too restricting to it, but I trust the intent is that it's not going to be, since it's in the front of the building on Benson Street, going to be something that isn't going to work for them, and that I would think that they would want it to be transparent, as opaque as possible.
can I just say, can we just quickly open it up, have them say what their piece, and then we can move on?
Okay, we're going to open this hearing back up if, I guess this question's oriented to architect or Worth.
I'll take that. My response, I love the discussion, by the way. It was a great discussion. And I agree 100% what Chris just said in his last remarks. The intent is that we want to screen the transformers. So we would not put up a screen wall that doesn't do that job. We also have an intent, we want it to be interesting and wants to feel like the base of the building. So therefore, we're using the same materiality as the building with perforated metal. But I believe where we're going to end up is that perforation is going to be so small that the perforations do add a little bit of depth, like Chris mentioned, but it won't be something you can see through. That you won't be that, certainly when you get off of 90 degrees, you can't see through a very tight perforation. Just 1 degree off changes it. It makes it more opaque, but it still gives you a little bit of texture and depth so it goes with the building. So our intent is right in line with, I believe, what I heard with your discussion today that we want to achieve there.
Are there any more questions? Paul, got it open? Satisfied? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, we'll close the hearing again. on the transformer screen, I do think in the rendering that was shown, it is nice that it is made to blend into the rest of the building, and then there's now that signage element to it as well, which you can feel how you feel about signage, but it actually draws your eye away from it a bit, and also is a little bit of insurance too of you don't want something that's an eyesore behind your signage either. So. Thoughts? Seeing none? Someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And I'll just clarify here, you're moving to approve all 5 of the
That's correct.
listed requests based off of the presentation as shown to us today.
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you, guys. And I'll say here before closing this out, for anyone watching, for the record, too, I do also appreciate the Board of Adjustments text being put very clearly in that presentation in quotations. If in the future, if that comes up, that type of detail is extremely useful, as we saw. If we had that potentially last time, we might even have been able to move faster. So thank you. Okay. The commission's written decision will be adopted when the minutes of this meeting are adopted. The written decision will be provided to the applicant and other parties with the right to such notice following adoption of the decision. So that carries and that now passes. Thank you. That concludes the quasi-judicial portion of our meeting. I believe we've got minutes to approve. Has everyone received I don't have the agenda in front of me. Is it the August 1st meeting minutes? Has everyone received, had a chance to review the August 1st meeting minutes? Would anyone like to offer any corrections or a motion to approve the minutes?
Sorry.
I reviewed the minutes. They're very long.
I too reviewed the minutes because it was one that I think had to be taken via recording. So I thought they looked amazingly well done for having to have listened to that 4-hour transcription. So
I'd make a motion to accept them as written.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Walters. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that again is unanimous. I believe we've got Sir Walter. And before we jump into that, I'll just recognize that we do have a new commissioner with us today, Brooke. Brooke, if you could just very briefly introduce yourself and welcome.
Thanks. I'm Brooke Funkhauser, an architect and interior designer with Ratio Architects just down the street. I have been with the company for about 16, 17 years, but only about 3 years here in Raleigh, so still feel like a newbie a little bit, but I'm learning a lot as I go, and just really interested in giving back to the community and participating in the growth of this awesome city.
Great. Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate your volunteering your time with us. Casey, you.
Yes, I have a couple updates and information for Sir Walter, which is just a few weeks away. So I have an outline of the proposed program, which is mirroring basically what we did last time, just to give you all a sense of what to expect. If you were involved in past years and been the last couple of years, it's very similar to what you're seeing here. So the event officially runs from 6 to 8. At 6 o'clock, the event will begin. There'll be live music. And then we'll have remarks and presentations of the awards, Commerce Place highlight conversation to highlight that legacy project. The RHDC is coming again to present they have one landmark plaque to present this year, and then closing out with the rest of the awards and any closing remarks from the chair to wrap up by 8 or at 8. So if there's any last remaining feedback on this general outline, we need to know because things are going to print very, very, very soon. So I wanted to get it in front of you one last time to get feedback.
Great. It's a packed agenda. I'm, off the top of my head, just wondering if we need to get started earlier and add some breaks in the middle. You know, we typically do an intermission. This year, there's the Commerce Place panel that's been posed. And Adam, do you want to say a little bit more about what the idea is behind that?
Sure. Jake Levitas with, oh gosh, what are they called? The
Urban Projects
Urban
Group.
Projects Group. Asked if they could feature the work that's being done at Commerce Place that we supported last year as a part of our legacy project, because it's going to be newly finished at that point. So really kind of opportunistic moment for them to show off some of the work that they've done and that we help support. I think, the way he's described it, we didn't give them very much money, but we gave them the beginning money that allowed them to snowball the effort. And so I think it's a good opportunity for us to show what our legacy projects can do and how partnerships can make good things. We thought about breaking up the award ceremony with that, but I also think that we really, if we're going to do half the awards and then do two more things and then the other half of the awards, I think we got to have at least like a 10-minute, 15-minute recess somewhere in there. So maybe we do need to think about starting it earlier, or I don't know. I don't know what you all think about that. It's a lot in there.
Featuring the shelters also, or just Commerce?
No, just Commerce.
Shelters are awesome.
They're going to be boards.
Yes, there are going to be legacy project boards, I think they're like 3 by 4 or something large, highlighting both the Commerce Place and the Skate Raleigh projects. And they're all invited, of course, too. They've received invitations as well.
Are the Skate Raleigh boards emphasizing the student connections and how those things were built, designed, constructed?
Yeah, it talks about the student connection. To be fair, it's more visual than a bunch of text.
Yeah, good.
But yeah, it does highlight it. And I think they both include a link to their respective web pages.
Yeah. You wanting to advocate for more visibility for that?
Yeah, it's cool for all the layers, the way
It is
that
really
thing
cool.
came together. And then they showed up and it immediately caught. I was like, oh, cool, man. Those are neat. Was the graffiti part of the design, or was that organic?
That's happened after
Okay.
the install.
Yeah.
They're going to continue to evolve.
Yeah.
Intentional.
Yeah, but they were designed to be tagged, basically. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're not offended that they've been tagged.
Yeah, no, it's cool. But yeah, and then the whole story, the school design, build, all of that, mobility.
I didn't list it on here, but usually as part of the welcoming remarks and recognizing the sponsors, typically, and usually this is the chair, but it can be whoever you guys want it to be from the commission, would take a moment to also recognize the legacy projects, and we can put some slides, a couple slides in for each of the projects.
Yeah, we should definitely do
well.
that. Have we confirmed, will the mayor speak, and there'll be city council there to present awards?
So I believe the mayor is confirmed.
Okay.
I don't know that we have a confirmation of somebody from council that maybe would help the presenting of the handing off of the awards.
So some years it's been the mayor, and she stayed the whole time last year. I think she needed to leave midway through, and Mayor Pro Tem Branch presented the other half.
Yeah.
How much time is given for her to speak?
I think the last couple of years it's been like she's spoken for maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Yeah. And again, like the main important part of this time is like the start time of the welcome remarks, and the additional times are more for our purposes of that. We're kind of like planning things
Guideposts?
out and accounting for enough time. And what we put on the print for the program is more general. So like the 6th, the start time, if there's going to be like an intermission, what time that is at. So for folks that are there can kind of gauge like how the evening's going to go.
I do agree with Adam. I do feel like there's a need for a 10-minute intermission. It's a lot of listening, and then gives folks an opportunity to get another piece of food or beverage or whatever and network.
You just move the welcome remarks to 6:30 and squeeze that out.
We can do that.
What time do the doors open?
6.
Okay.
Obviously, people show up at like 5:45 or whatever.
They don't lock.
It will all. Everything will have already been set up and ready for folks. The catering will be set up and everything, and so.
Is that the same as last year? Or did we move it to later?
It got moved to later at some point.
What do you
I
mean?
feel like I
What-
usually walk over after work, so.
No, it was 6 to 8 last year.
That was 6, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was 6 to 8 last year. I recall some years it starting in the 5s, but.
I think we did it one year early and nobody showed up until 6 anyway, and we were like, well, that didn't
Yeah.
work. Because what happens if it's too early is 5 people show up on time at the time, and they're awkwardly standing there for 30 minutes with all of us. And the caterer.
And also, and at the end too, it won't be like at 8 o'clock the lights go up and everybody has to leave. The event planner is planning that they'll have, even though the band will be done, they'll still have some like canned music, and the lights won't go all the way up until like 8:30 or so. So if everyone's having a really great time, there's a little bit of a transition time where folks can kind of mingle a little bit more before you'll see me come around and be like, okay, guys, move the party along somewhere else. But it won't be like 8 o'clock and then you got to go. So
That sounds good.
Did Stormy help present awards before as the liaison to the commission?
2
I know
years
she's
ago
been
she
there
did.
Most years. What's that?
2 years ago she did. Last year it ended up being Corey Branch.
Okay.
Well, she didn't help present them. She just handed them off. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. We never
Yeah,
had
not,
any.
not do any speaking.
Yeah,
Just
okay,
be
yeah.
there to.
Yes, she was 2
shake
years
hands,
ago,
take
and 3
pictures.
years ago, yeah, as well, or 4
Or
years
if
ago.
she's there, we should
It's
definitely
on her.
recognize her.
It's on her calendar.
Yeah.
So
So I think just to kind of be clear, is everybody okay with adding intermission in somewhere there?
I think it's a good idea.
10, 15 minutes. I mean, I think a big part of this event is trying to get everybody together to spend time talking to each other and hanging out with each other, not just watching us talk. And so I think not 5 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, if that's okay.
if we move the start time up to 6:30, we can fit in a 15-minute, like around 7-ish, a little after. Okay.
What's the RHDC landmark plaque presentation? I missed what that is.
So for properties that have been officially designated as a Raleigh Historic Landmark, they get like a real heavy plaque to put on their property. And last year, they approached us about maybe using this as an opportunity to give a little more fanfare to that occasion, because previously it was like, come pick up your plaque from the office, and that was kind of
I
it.
thought it was a great partnership. It's fun to
yeah.
have them.
Yeah, it
be
felt like
there.
a tie. I think everyone at the time felt it was a nice tie-in.
Right. It didn't. There's multiple probably, right?
It was just one this year. I don't remember the name of it.
Just got to wait for the event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're putting an intermission in, should we flip the landmark plaque presentation and Commerce Place panel and have the intermission go between those two, just from a like time split of, so presentation of the 6 awards, go straight into the landmark plaque presentation, then intermission, then start with Commerce Place panel. Oops, sorry guys.
Jed.
And Adam, you're going to be facilitating that panel, so.
Yeah, well, unless somebody else wants to do it.
No, you've already volunteered.
Well, it's we had great participation. So can we review who's participating and what? Do we have that figured out?
Yes. Yes. So that's some additional information I have for you. So, unless Will, you don't want to, typically the chair kind of MCs it and does like the welcoming remarks
I'll do that.
and that kind of stuff and closing remarks. And then Matt and Sravia both volunteered to be our award presenters.
Right.
And I will send you guys an email with all the information about the award winners and all of that, so you have that to prepare
It's,
ahead of time.
it's Robbie, have you attended Sir Walter before? You get to read out the category and about the project that wins. It's not too difficult, so.
I've seen it before, but I think I can
Yeah.
handle it.
Yeah, it's
Thank
not like
you
a
both
big.
for volunteering for that.
Yeah, thank you. And then both Adam and Patrice said that they would be available to help. Now, Adam, you're going to be doing the panel, but then we also usually need a set of hands too. So the awards will be placed on a table next to the stage, and so we'll need somebody to like physically just pick them up and hand them to the mayor or the council member, whoever's going to be physically presenting it to the award winners and for the photo and stuff. So it's
So that'll be Patrice. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
yeah. Unless somebody else wants to help as well, and you can split it up half and half or however you want to do it. But
Exciting.
Yeah.
This is a great event. It's here, September 25th.
yes, it's very fun.
landmark plaque presentation?
Last year it was Katie Pate, and I think they're still deciding that, but I think it'll either be her or Rob Allen, a representative from the commission.
And then closing remarks is the mayor.
Mayor's on the
She's a big
chair, opens it. I'll introduce the mayor. She'll speak. Then we'll go into
Recognizing the
go into-
artist and that kind of stuff, yeah. And then
You're the
awards.
closing remarks.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you have something else?
I did have one other slide of just some like reminders and information. So please do continue distributing out the invitation. I can, if you want me to, I can resend the email. Just let me know.
Yes, please.
Okay, let me make a note.
Has there been a newsletter push? Yeah, I know, I saw the ones for the award submissions for the sponsors, but has been there one for just general come attend?
So it has gone out internally at the city to both the Planning and Development Department, who's obviously pretty heavily involved in the planning, as well as our full city employee newsletter. The email invitation has been emailed out to everybody, obviously the commission, city council, all the folks that were on the commissions that participated in the jury, sponsors, legacy projects, all the folks that were winning an award or were nominated this year. We're all in on that email list. And then this week or next week, I'll also be sending it out to the email list from last year for folks that were engaged last year in case they're interested in coming and celebrating this year as well. And then obviously whoever else y'all have in your networks to share it with.
Awesome. To recap, 6:30 start time now, and we're going to flip the order of plaque and panel and do an intermission between those two.
Yes.
Any other last items here?
Just to encourage all of you and everybody who else that you're talking to about the invitation to please RSVP. That's super helpful. Right now, we currently have 59 RSVPs and 56 of them are yeses, so that's a great percentage of yes. And then just a couple reminders, please do, if you're able, to come at like 5:30 or 5:45 so that if folks start showing up at 6, that they're not showing up into an empty room. And that way, if there's any last minute things that need to get taken care of, we have some hands to kind of make sure everything's set up. And then every year, everybody likes to congregate in the back of the event space. So please, please set a good example and yourself and encourage others to come sit and stand closer to the stage. We'll have some tables near the stage with seating so that hopefully, I know that's the feedback we hear the last few years is everybody hangs out in the back. And I know last year, Adam, you tried to coax people to come up to the front and people don't really do it, so.
Yeah, there's
Yeah, I was gonna say the food
Yes.
and the food and the drinks are in the back.
Yes.
the
yes.
band's up front, so like if people are trying to talk, it can be.
Yeah. So that's just my plug to to the extent that we can, if we can try to set the example of congregating and hanging out a little bit closer to the stage, so it's,
I
we
think
don't
if
have the
we
empty
just have
space.
twice as many people as we ever had before, then they'll have to fill in the front.
Yeah.
Or half as many chairs.
There you go. Well, I don't know if there's any chairs. Really.
there's no chairs.
Yeah. Stand.
So that's everything that I had. Now, like, things are going to print, like, next week, so if there's any last minute anything, we need to know now, because.
Where are the buttons and the stickers and the magnets?
So we are ordering the stickers, so we will have those for the event.
Cool.
So,
Great.
yes.
Well, thank you, Casey. I know a lot of work goes in behind the scenes, not just you, but the entire team. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This is a great event and always exciting at this point in the year to look forward to it. So
Yeah, if you haven't come before and you're debating about coming, please do come. Everyone has a
it
really
is
good
the
time.
best kept,
Yes.
great event that would, so.
It is. It's true. That's great. Yeah.
Awesome. Any new business from the commission? Anything further that anyone would like to bring up? Seeing none, I will adjourn this meeting.